Let's address the elephant in the room. First up, Mark. Our last experience with FIFA, honey, just close your ears for a moment or two, wasn't that great. We got a little bit burnt, to say the least. Why are we doing it again?
I think hopefully it's more than just being gluttons for punishment, but no, I think if you go back to what Emma explained earlier on around the FFA strategy and the focus on developing the women's game, the Women's World Cup would just be an enormous catalyst for so many things in the women's game. And it doesn't necessarily hinge on success in the bid. The benefit of bidding for a tournament like this, as you can already see, the engagement that it triggers with governments is a huge opportunity for the sport, and it's something that our game has never really been able to capitalise on quite to the same extent as some of our major rivals. And it is allowing us to have conversations with governments right around the country, and we're determined to put forward the best possible bid. Obviously, at the end of the day, decisions will be taken outside of our control, but we're hopeful that by putting forward the strongest possible bid, the decision will be made on that basis. But as I say, whether we win or we lose, ultimately we hope for many good things to come from the bidding process, whether that is further investment by government in the women's game, whether it is further awakening corporate Australia to the opportunity that women's football presents, whether it's inspiring the next generation of young children, young girls to take up the sport, or whether it's shifting perceptions and opinions about the women's game and the whole issue of gender equality in this country. They're all good reasons to bid, and I think there's a reason why we opted for this FIFA tournament above all others. In fact, we weren't really interested in bidding for any others. It was the power and the opportunity that a Women's World Cup presents for change.
Jane, what are the logistics of the bid, and at this moment in time, where are we at with it?
Well, we haven't yet received the final documentation for 2023. So all of our planning now is based on the 2019 bid process. So that involves collaboration with government. We can't bid without government. Government's committed up to $5 million for this bid. So we've commenced a roadshow around the country. We're meeting with all the state and territories and talking to them about government guarantees, different agreements, and all of these. They all have to be signed to ensure we have a compliant bid. So they're the basic foundations to ensure we actually put our best bid forward, best possible bid in.
Is there an appetite to host a Women's World Cup? And again, I'm not trying to labour this point, but given what happened in 2010, there was at the time, I think a lot of people felt, well, that's it, we shouldn't bid for these tournaments. But by going around the country, do you find that people have sort of got over that, and maybe in the wake of the Asian Cup, which I know you were very much involved with as well, that's whetted the appetite again to host these big football events? Definitely.
All of the state and territories that we've met with so far are very excited about the possibility of us hosting this competition in 2023. All of them except for WA and South Australia, were part of the Asian Cup. The benefits from that competition were so fantastic and so great that they all see the benefits for the women's game, and also for other things, other priorities for government, driving participation, driving the gender equality debate, and also unlocking the commercial potential of the FIFA Women's World Cup.
And Mark, I assume that obviously you've learnt a lot from the bidding process of 2010, but also a lot of the infrastructure that was put in place for the Asian Cup in 2015 is still there, so you can probably run a leaner, meaner bid this time around, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, that's very true. I think the beauty of having tried on a couple of occasions with both FIFA and AFC bids, and also the fact that the Asian Cup is such a recent memory, means that we're able to pick up a lot of very recent conversations and frameworks that have been agreed with governments, whether it's developing budgets, whether it's getting all of the sign-offs that are required for what are quite onerous and quite varied government guarantees. A lot of things that happen behind the scenes to pull off a big event like this. So we know where some of the pitfalls are, so we know where to focus on at the outset, and that's been the approach thus far, and I think governments also are attuned to all of that, and we're finding that we're able to make a whole lot more headway a lot quicker as a result. We have a couple of bid books that we can dust off as well, so that we know that
Cartoon kangaroo? Or?
I can categorically deny a claim here today that there will be no cartoon kangaroos this time around.
Very pleased to hear it. Very pleased to hear it. Jane, in terms of when you host a World Cup or an Asian Cup, big football tournaments, one of the big words around the place is normally legacy. What does it leave for the game after the tournament has been and gone? What are some of the tangible benefits? And Mark alluded to that an event like this, if we got to host it, would leave behind, not just for women's football or girls' football, but for football in general in Australia.
Yeah, we want to make sure that we're leveraging this opportunity to improve facilities, is one example. Emma alluded to earlier about some of the challenges in growing the participation in the women's game is back to facilities, be it change rooms, additional pitches, lighting. We were able to do that for the Asian Cup, and so we want to make sure that we can definitely do that through hosting the FIFA Women's World Cup. There's also the legacy of an increased participation in getting to that 50-50 target. That would be just phenomenal if we could do that, and not just in participation, but also in coaching, refereeing, administration and leadership roles through sport.
And in terms of girls who play the game, or who might want to play the game, Mark, this would be an unbelievable chance, wouldn't it, to watch the Matildas on home soil and hosting a World Cup in your country. Fantastic.
It would be incredible. I think any tournament on home soil, as a player and as a fan for that matter, seeing your national team or playing in your national team in front of your friends and family is a unique experience. And I think even going back to the FIFA World Youth Cup in 1993, the Asian Cup more recently, it is a special occasion, and it does stir passions and emotions, and it does inspire people to perform perhaps even better than they otherwise would. So I think it would be great to provide that kind of opportunity to what is an amazing playing group, really an amazing group of women. I think it would be something that would be quite transformational, not just for football and the women's game, but certainly the whole of football, and I think Australian society. To some degree, I think the Asian Cup sort of helped awaken Australia to our place in the region, our place in the world. It certainly helped provide an opportunity for communities of Asian origin or heritage living in Australia to celebrate their origins, but also to celebrate the country that they now live in and that they now live in and are raising their own families in. So that's the other thing that I think would be quite unique about an Australian FIFA Women's World Cup, and why we think it would be an amazing thing for FIFA to bring to Australia.
And interestingly, that Asian Cup in 2015 turned over a profit commercially of $26 million. That despite somebody in the broadcasting world calling it a lemon pre-tournament. I think afterwards he was forced to admit that actually we'd made lemonade. That was the famous Eddie Maguire quote. Just picking up, the final question from me, Jane, on the commercial viability of a tournament like this. You mentioned that you've got government backing, which is great. I'm sure the football community will back you 100%. In terms of the commercial world, are they aware of some of the possibilities around this? I mean, you look at some of the figures for the last World Cup in Canada, 764 million viewers worldwide, 1.3 million fans through the gates, 20 million visitors to the specific World Cup website, all of which helps to promote Australia and by extension, theoretically, your brands, your products.
Oh yeah, the potential is absolutely huge. So it's basically double what we achieved for the Asian Cup. I do believe that commercial corporates are all now suddenly being awakened to the power of the women's game. We know FIFA definitely are, and that's why I think there's so much competition to bid for this FIFA Women's World Cup for 2023. I think the fact that there is so much competition, it just highlights how important this event will be. And I also think that corporate Australia get on board now.
Who's your biggest rivals, and when do you actually find out whether we get the tick or the cross? So as journalists can start attacking FIFA again.
Yeah, so based on the 2019 timelines, our bid submission, our beautiful bid book, would be due October 2018, with a result or an announcement in March 2019. So they're the timeframes we're working off now. We hope we'll get the final documentation first quarter 2023. So we're putting everything in place at the moment. We're in our strategic planning phase of the bid. We're starting to develop our vision, our themes, conducting economic impact assessments so we can go to government with some more hard numbers and just demonstrate the power that this event's going to have.
You skillfully swerved the question about who's the biggest rival. So, Mark, you get the curly little question. Who's the biggest rival? Colombia, Japan, Thailand, South Korea, New Zealand? All of the above?
I feel like I'd be channeling the national team coach, Alan Stajic, by saying that we take all our rivals very seriously. No, I think all of those countries would have a claim for one reason or another. I think they've all shown a willingness to develop the women's game, and I think they could all make excellent hosts. So we do have the challenge cut out for us. I think what sets us apart, though, is the fact that we've never hosted a senior FIFA tournament before. And by 2023, it will be some 30 years since we last hosted a FIFA tournament in 1993. So we would say it's probably about time. We've certainly showed by hosting the Asian Cup in 2015, the most successful Asian Cup ever, that we do these things very well. And there's been a lot of discussion today about some of the competition that we face from the AFL and from cricket and other sports. A Women's World Cup in Australia would help advance and grow the game like nothing else, and would have an impact that goes perhaps further than it might go in other countries. I think that's one thing that does set us apart, and where FIFA does care about the development of the game and taking the game to new frontiers, I think that would remain an important consideration.
Okay, we've got about 5 or 6 minutes before we need to head outside and watch the Matildas train. Do we have any questions for Mark and Jane about the 2023 World Cup bids? Hands up if you want to ask a question. No, it's a perfect bid. Easy.
We've won already.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much, Jane Fernandez, Mark Falvo. Good luck with the bid, guys.